It began at first as a ripple, a series of disruptions where a distant conflict met the seams of global commerce and found them thin. What followed was neither abstract nor remote. It arrived at the pump in household budgets and campaign whispers. It arrived in congressional hearings and on crowded docks where ships idle, and in shipyards that long ago learned to live on the protections of a century-old law. Today, that ripple is a story about war oil and the tightrope between short-term relief and long-term resilience. President Donald Trump is navigating that tightrope from the White House, where decisions meant to steady markets have become almost overnight political flashpoints. The administration has opted repeatedly for temporary fixes, waivers, exemptions, short extensions, moves designed to sow on American-built, American-flagged, and American-crewed ships. Supporters call it a bulwark for national security, a policy that preserves shipbuilding capacity and protects well-paid maritime jobs. Critics call it costly, inflexible, and ill-suited to the speed of modern markets. In times of crisis, presidents have reached for the waiver. The President administration took the free up capacity quickly. Foreign tankers that normally sit out of domestic trades can move fuel from the Gulf Coast to the Northeast, and barges can slip into routes that would otherwise take weeks to clear. But the relief is rarely dramatic enough to erase the footprint of a global shock, and it comes with costs. Each waiver chips away at the confidence of domestic shipbuilders, and each temporary exception raises the question of whether the shipbuilding industrial base will rebuild itself once the crisis fades. As one industry leader put it, each extension chips away at efforts to restore American leadership in commercial shipping and shipbuilding. The voice behind that line is not an abstract critic. She leads the trade groups that represent the inland and coastal towboat and barge industry, and spent years arguing both the economic and security case for preserving. People are measuring the cost of decisions made far from them. Gas prices right now is insane. No, you can see right here is $5 and something, and it didn't even fill up the gas well. With $50, it's going to be only 2 gallons. That's really insane, man, said one New Yorker standing outside a downtown station, voice thick with disbelief. I mean, this is downtown, but $5 is still a little bit, outrageous. But even I live in the Bronx, and I have a premium car, so I always have the short end of the stick. So I'm paying almost $80 a tank for, my vehicle. And thankfully, I don't got to pay for this vehicle, but still, even as a company, that still hurts, even though I don't see it. But $80 for regular is crazy. The pause, the counting of dollars, and the tiny arithmetic of everyday life that is the political engine under the policy debate. People feel it when they drive. They talk about it at kitchen tables. They blame whoever they believe is in charge. The frustration is unmistakable. For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again. Another voice added at a campaign rally, a reminder of how these pressures are folded into public narratives and electoral calculations. The administration's argument is simple: loosen restrictions to keep gasoline and heating fuel moving until markets calm and regular supply lines can be reestablished. Officials insist that early notice of extensions helps the shipping industry line up vessels in capacity, reducing last-minute bottlenecks at key ports. It is a classic management of scarcity. Buy time, smooth logistics, avoid panic. Analysts, however, are more circumspect. Global oil prices, they note, are driven primarily by geopolitical risk and global supply-demand balances. Squeezing domestic constraints can help move fuel around the country more efficiently, and it can provide relief in specific regions, notably the East Coast and parts of the Midwest that rely on movements from the Gulf, but few expect a miracle that would return prices to pre-crisis levels overnight. One think tank studying the issue projected that price relief for coastal markets would likely be modest rather than transformative. For voters, modest relief may still be politically significant. For the broader economy, it is rarely decisive. There are broader strategic arguments layered beneath the immediate logistics. Some officials and many analysts argue that in the absence of stronger multilateral mechanisms, only the United States can project the military power needed to keep key writ time passages open in the face of direct interdiction or blockade. That claim comes with its own strings attached. If a country uses military force to guarantee passage, the decision to use force is consequential and may draw the United States deeper into regional conflict. Others contend that a more muscular European effort to protect choke points would be both appropriate and necessary, given that European energy interests are heavily exposed. We would welcome a serious European effort to do something about this strait and this passage, said an administration official in a private exchange, considering it's their energy capabilities that are most at stake. The plea is both diplomatic and practical. Shared risk implies shared responsibility. But the short answer remains that when sea lanes are threatened, the capacity to act quickly matters, and it is concentrated unevenly in the world today. Behind the policy fights are the pressure points that shape politics, a recent poll foe. On a clear majority of voters linking responsibility for higher fuel prices to President Trump's handling of the conflict and energy policy, a perception that crosses party lines and that party strategists are watching closely as midterm campaigns loom. Whether those perceptions are fair or fully grounded in policy nuance is a separate question. In politics, perception often outpaces policy. The White House has been acutely aware of that dynamic, rolling out decisions in ways that it hopes will be seen as responsive rather than reactive. Factually.co/T-E-P-S:/topic/Donald-Trump-presidency-202-5-202-6 You dumb industry reaction is predictably split. Shipping companies and operators who can compete in a global marketplace welcome the immediate flexibilities. Domestic shipbuilders and unions worry about the long-term consequences of repeated waivers. For years, the operational reality of the Jones Act has been a balance. It protects an industry that shrank under globalization and grants it a monopoly for domestic shipments in return for a guarantee of capacity in wartime or extreme need. When waivers become frequent, the guarantee looks less certain. That is the case Jennifer Carpenter has been making publicly for years, arguing that frequent exceptions undermine the very industrial base the law was meant to protect. Her group warns that without domestic demand, yards lose the political and economic lifelines they need to keep skilled workers and to invest. The result could be a hollowed-out ability to surge capacity when a true national security emergency arrives. WaterwaysJournal.net, https://www.waterwaysjournal.net/2025/0/3/0/beyond-the-merit-with-Jennifer/treat0/OpenAI. The human contours of the story are messy. Families judge the trade-offs in real time, pay more at the pump now, or push the cost down the road and risk losing long-term domestic capability. Small businesses that rely on predictable transport why higher freight bills, truckers and local suppliers see thinner margins. Coastal communities watch shipyards with a mixture of hope and skepticism. The recent stretch of elevated prices has not turned immediately into an economic crisis, but it has made energy affordability a top-of-mind issue for many voters, and that alone makes it a political wildfire. Internationally, the conflict that rippled through shipping lanes has reshaped diplomatic calculations. Leaders whose countries are energy importers are demanding more action and coordination. Some European capitals have signaled interest in playing a more robust role to protect passages and supply lines. Others have been more cautious, balancing the political appetite to get involved against the risks of escalation. Meanwhile, Tehran's strategy on the battlefield has been to apply pressure in indirect ways by disrupting flows, by driving uncertainty into markets, by shaping a narrative that the costs of conflict ripple far beyond. The shooting, that indirect pressure, is proving potent in democratic societies where fuel prices translate quickly into household stress and voter anger. There are difficult trade-offs ahead. The administration's reliance on temporary waivers buys breathing room. But it also risks long-term erosion of a domestic industrial base that was built in part to endure precisely these kinds of crises. Rebuilding shipyards and domestic fleets is neither quick nor cheap. It requires steady demand, investment, and policy certainty. If waivers become the new normal, that investment calculus becomes harder to justify. Policy solutions, therefore, sit on two time horizons. In the immediate term, targeted waivers, strategic releases from emergency reserves, and diplomatic pressure to keep alternative routes open can blunt the shock. In the medium and long term, reinvestment in domestic maritime capability, better contingency planning for regional choke points, diversified supply chains, and stronger multilateral arrangements to handle maritime disruptions must be on the table. That is the tension policymakers are wrestling with, balancing political imperatives with industrial strategy. The domestic political consequences of those choices are plain. When voters feel the pinch at the pump, their attention narrows. Complex trade-offs blur into simple questions of blame. In this moment, the president is not immune to that basic political arithmetic. Public frustration over fuel prices and the perception that a single administration bears responsibility for their bills can reshape electoral landscapes even if the underlying drivers are global and structural. To many, the question becomes not only how to move fuel more efficiently, but how to reassure families that policy will protect both their monthly budgets and the nation's long-term capacity. There is also a counterpoint. While fuel price spikes can be painful, they have not so far led to a breakdown in basic supply or to a strategic loss of access. Markets have proven resilient, companies have rerouted where they can, and emergency mechanisms have functioned, but resilience is not the same as durability. Repeated stress without a plan to rebuild increases the chance that one day a shock will outstrip the stopgap measures. For ordinary Americans, the calculus is immediate and intensely practical. I will say that every time I'm pulling up to a gas station now, it's a little bit of a hesitation to know that it's gonna cost a bit more than it did, before. One commuter said, summing up an experience shared by millions, that kind of hesitation changes behavior. Fewer discretionary trips, recalculated household budgets, constrained small business operations. It is where geopolitics meets the grocery list. Looking ahead, policymakers face hard choices that defy simple answers. If the goal is to protect consumers now, waivers and tactical moves will continue to play a role. If the goal is to guarantee long-term security and industrial capacity, then the country must accept the difficult trade-offs of investment, protection, and time. If Europe and other partners step up in a coordinated way to protect choke points and share the burden on any single government lessens. If they do not, the United States will be pressed to do more and to make decisions that mix economic policy, military posture, and diplomatic outreach. This is not, in the end, just a story about ships and law. It is a story about choices, the short-term relief of a waiver versus the long-term stability of a maritime industrial base, the immediate political relief of lower pump prices versus the steady strategic work of capacity building, the local anxiety at a gas station versus the global calculations that produce price signals. It is a reminder that in a world of interconnected risks, the effects of a regional conflict can be felt in neighborhoods far from the shore. And so the administration extends a waiver, ship owners adjust, commuters tighten budgets, industry groups issue warnings, and analysts caution about modest relief. Voters tally the costs. Lawmakers talk about safeguards. Somewhere between the tugboat and the tanker, between the dry dock and the gas nozzle, the country must decide whether it will patch the leak for now or invest in the hull that will withstand the next storm. In the conversation that follows, one truth will matter more than the rest. People will remember how decisions affected their daily lives. If policy answers are measured in weeks, the political consequences will be measured in years.